when he was playing with a young Damian Lillard, like especially like towards the end of his tenure there, was arguably the best power forward in basketball. Hello and welcome to the Friday, April 16th edition of the TV on Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. That would be highly appreciated, as well as hitting the notification bell on so you won't miss an episode. For all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. And for my Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean listeners, just continue to show your support in any way possible. I really do appreciate all of you. I have an awesome show lined up for you guys today. We're going to be talking about LaMarcus Aldridge's very sudden retirement, which occurred yesterday. We're also going to be talking about the Jamal Murray injury, as well as a top 5, maybe even close to the top 10 game winners for this year. Man, the list was hard, but that was inspired by the Luca Doncic game winner from a couple of days ago, so that's going to be fun. And then obviously we're going to finish this episode with some other news and notes. But yeah, very action-packed episode today. A lot to get through. It's going to be kind of a downer because a lot, like the LaMarcus Aldridge retirement and the Jamal Murray news were kind of sad but sudden. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun episode nonetheless, so hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, sit back, relax, and then just enjoy this episode. But we're going to start off with the LaMarcus Aldridge retirement because, man, that came out of effing nowhere on Thursday. It was like Thursday morning, and we just got news that LaMarcus Aldridge was retiring. Shortly after, we actually got to see the reason why he was retiring in a letter from LaMarcus Aldridge. Although he signed with the Nets a month ago, over the past few days, I believe, like the game where they faced the 76ers, he was experiencing irregular heartbeats, which is why like he felt like really uncomfortable and couldn't play. And with his career winding down at 36 years of age after a stellar 15-year career, he decided to hang things up because health is wealth, as many people do know. And he talked about in his letter how he put the NBA and basketball, the sport of basketball, in front of his family for a long time now, and that he wants to change that, and he wants to be there for his family as he gets older. And he's comfortable with what he's done in the NBA. And although he didn't say this, but it seems like although he's, gonna probably miss out on a championship if he doesn't play with the Nets, it's like he believes that being healthy and kind of trying to stay alive is probably best for his path going forward. And I can't blame him. Can't blame him for that. Health and your family is bigger than basketball. And although it's sad to see him retire so suddenly, can't blame the guy. He's had a stellar career. And although he hasn't had, the most glorious last couple of years, I mean, people always remember him from his Portland Trailblazer days and early Spurs days where he was an all-NBA player, perennial all-star. He wasn't quite the same over these past few years. Like he was kind of like dropping off in terms of production. I mean, this year was like 13 points a game. Last year, the Spurs missed out on the playoffs for the first time in 20 years, and he only averaged like 13.5, like 18 and stuff like that. So he definitely was not playing like his best basketball, but he's still like a big contributor, and that's why the Nets picked him up, because he thought they could bring something to that team. And sadly, he has to retire, but he's had an amazing career, and I wish him well going forward. But yeah, he retired and stuff like that. And I want to talk about this a lot on this podcast, even beforehand, talking about LaMarcus Aldridge's Hall of Fame candidacy. Because he's like one of those interesting players to me who I believe, like, people like look at LaMarcus Aldridge and think Hall of Famer. I don't know about that. But that's a lot of recency bias, because LaMarcus Aldridge, especially in his days with the Portland Trailblazers, when he was playing with a young Damian Lillard, like especially like towards the end of his tenure there, was arguably the best power forward in basketball. At his peak, he was averaging 23 points a game, 11 rebounds, 1 block a game, was the mid-range assassin, one of the best mid-range shooters in basketball, one of the best post players in basketball over the last decade. And he was a very good player, and a lot of people failed to remember that. I mean, people have seen, the 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, but people forget how actually effective he was as a basketball player, taking the Trailblazers to multiple playoff appearances. He was a really good player, and although you may not look at him right away as a Hall of Famer, he probably is, honestly. And here's my argument for him. If you look at his total points, he has 19,951 points, along with over 8,000 rebounds. I mean, he basically was 51. I think it was 49 points away from reaching 20K. So, probably like 5-6 more games, he would probably been a 20K in points, and also 8,000 rebounds, which is absolutely crazy. But he sits 51st all time in the all-time scoring ranks, mixed in with the 7 All-Star appearances, 5 All-NBA appearances. You got to look at kind of who's ahead of him, especially in terms of that high scoring numbers as well as those like rebounding. More focus on the scoring though, because if you look at the top 50 players of all time, not of all time, but the top 50 scorers in NBA history, I looked at that entire list, and 47 of them for me are Hall of Famers or soon to be Hall of Famers, and I believe that they're locks. The only 3 people I see on that top 50 scoring list that don't deserve to be probably in the Hall of Fame is Joe Johnson, which could be a discussion for another day, Tom Chambers, and Anton Jameson. And in my opinion, although LaMarcus Aldridge has slightly less points than all of them, he has a better resume. The 7-time All-Star appearances, the 5-time All-NBA appearances, and if you look at those 3 guys I mentioned, he has something that they don't have, in the sense where you can make the argument that Aldridge was the best power forward in basketball in 1 point. You can't say that for Joe Johnson. Arguable top 5 shooting guard? Maybe. But even that could be a stretch. Anton Jameson, I don't think he was a top 5 power forward at any point. Same thing with Tom Chambers. But LaMarcus Aldridge was at the top of that list. He was like I said, a multi-time All-NBA player. He had the respect of his teammates. I mean, Damian Lillard already said that his name should be up in the rafters soon. And he just has the accolades. He was not a bad defender. And with the numbers he's accumulated throughout his entire career, he should be in the Hall of Fame. He really should be. And even if you look at the people who are already in the Hall of Fame, like Mitch Richmond, I already made the case for him not being in the Hall of Fame, but if he's in it, LaMarcus Aldridge 100% deserves to be in it. And he just had a very good career. Although like he is not the most memorable, he doesn't have the biggest highlights. He still had a very, very good career, and should be known as probably one of the better big men and not just a better big man, but one of the most consistent big men over the past 10 years. Even comparing his career to a future Hall of Famer in Pau Gasol too, which I didn't mention earlier, he is very comparable, except without the 2 championships. I mean, Pau Gasol 2-time champion, but he was a 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, and Aldridge beats him out in 2 of those categories. So I think that Marcus Aldridge 100% deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for sure. He was a fantastic player. Like I said, that turnaround jumper from the post was almost automatic every single time, especially in his prime. And he's killed the Raptors on multiple occasions. I know he's killed a lot of fan bases with that patented mid-range, but he 100% deserves to be Hall of Fame. It's sad that he had to end something like this, very similar to the Chris Bosh one. Maybe not Chris Bosh one, with the blood clots and all that, but definitely a lot more sudden. But this it's probably for the best. Like I mentioned, at the top, health is wealth, and I really do hope that he finds peace with what he's doing, and hopefully he has a good retirement ahead of him. I really do wish all well wished for him. In terms of the Nets, I believe that this is going to continue to motivate them going forward, seeing one of their brothers have to leave the game of basketball at such a sudden time. I think they're gonna want to fight for him more. They want to fight more as a unit, and I think if you're coming up against the Nets in the playoffs, you should be definitely scared. So yeah, I mean, it's happy for him that he finally got to announce his retirement, but sad that he had to happen this way. Hopefully, nothing serious comes from those irregular heartbeats. But back to some more sad news. Jamal Murray, a few days ago, in a game versus the Golden State Warriors with 1 minute left, injured his ACL, tore it to be more specific. Yeah, it was definitely a rough play. He was driving to the rim, and then he kind of buckled, he kind of looked like he extended his hamstring, and he tried to finish the layup, but then he fell to the floor. He was screaming in pain, and it just looked bad. It looked bad. It was like one of those non-contact injuries as well, and you already know that those are the worst type of injuries to have, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I remember going on my recap, the day after, and I didn't know what the full diagnosis was until a couple hours later. But I was like, hopefully, maybe a hyperextended hamstring, something like that, hyperextended leg, maybe something that's a couple of weeks at the very most, at the very least. But you always had that feeling when you watched that play that something bad or something negative was going to happen, and it looked pretty bad at first glance. And even looking back at it, it did look really bad. So you were hoping for the best, but sadly the worst has happened, and it looks like he's going to be out for upwards to a year, which is really, really bad. Really bad for the Denver Nuggets, who have started to get things going. They've lost 2 games with Aaron Gordon so far, back-to-back games early on in the week. But they started to look really good. Nikola Jokic still playing at an MVP level. Jamal Murray, after a slow start to the season, was finally starting to pick it up. And it's just unfortunate that it had to happen this way. And what sucks is that not only is it they're going to miss him for this season, they're probably going to miss him for maybe half of next season, maybe even more, which absolutely sucks because a lot of people remember Jamal Murray, especially for what he did in the playoffs. He was absolutely phenomenal, especially last year, and we want to see it again. I mean, we all remember that battle he had between him and Mitchell, especially in that first round, which is absolutely crazy. And just throughout the playoffs, he was just phenomenal. 26 points per game, 6.5 assists, 5 rebounds, 45% from 3, 50% from the field, 89% from the line. He was just fantastic, and we were just wanting to see more of that. But sadly, the injuries suck. And looking back at just some of the injuries from this year, whether it was the James Wiseman injury, the LeBron James injury, the Anthony Davis one, it's just this year, along with the COVID stuff, I mean, has had us miss a lot of people due to injury, which is absolutely, saddening, honestly. And the Denver Nuggets, I don't know what they're thinking right now. I mean, they got a win over the Miami Heat a couple nights ago, so they got a win there. But what does this mean for them going forward? They had hopes of getting back to the Western Conference Finals, potentially going to the finals. But what's next? What is the ceiling for this team? And in my opinion, it's second-round tops. It is 100% second-round tops. And the only way I could see them even getting to second round is if they face off against the Trailblazers in the first round. And even still, you don't have that person to really go against Dame, kind of go bucket for bucket from the guard position. You are missing that right now, especially with Jamal Murray being out. Because if they face the Lakers in the first round, it's over for them. Especially with a healthy Lakers team, it's probably going to be over for the Nuggets. But if they somehow, if the Trailblazers somehow go to the 5th seed, or they go to the 3rd seed and the Trailblazers stay 6th, they have a chance. But even then, I mean, they were, in my opinion, the 3rd or 4th best team in the West, and that has dropped off a lot due to this Jamal Murray injury. And going forward, I mean, this just puts a lot more pressure on Nikola Jokic, who's already having a fantastic year, and just who has to, play make more, who has to create more shots for himself. This means more shots for Aaron Gordon, which I think he'll be fine taking, but you want him more as a defensive guy, and you don't really want to tax him too much on the offensive end as well. But the two guys you got to really think about going forward, especially for this season, and trying to even give them a chance, is one, Michael Porter, and the other one being Will Barton. Starting with Porter, I mean, this guy is now going to be moving on to the second option on offense. And when this injury happened, and I was thinking of what to talk about in this topic, I came back to that quote that he said last year in the bubble, where he was basically saying that he thinks he deserves more shots and he thinks he needs the ball more at the end of games. Now, during that time, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were absolutely balling out. So everyone was looking at him and like, MPJ, you're like a second-year player. You just sit down for a bit and let these guys who know how to win, who are far and away your best players, do their thing. So it seemed very far-fetched back then. But now in this scenario, he's going to have the opportunities, and now it's his time to capitalize. So far this season, averaging 17 points per game, and that number has increased significantly over the past month or so, playing very, very good basketball for the Denver Nuggets. And now he's moving to that second option role, which I believe he can do. Before the season, I thought he was going to take that massive step forward, average around 23 points a game, 7 rebounds, and stuff like that. But he hasn't yet. But at the same time, he is the third option, and he's still having a good season. But he needs to now go make up the points that Jamal Murray left. And maybe even more, because Jamal Murray was averaging like 22 points a game this year. For the Nuggets to even be competitive, Michael Porter needs to average like 24, 25. And I know it's in him. But being a third-year player, he's putting into this role right away, especially in the playoffs. I'm sure he wants it, but if he's going to produce, we're going to have to wait and see. I think he definitely has all the ability in the world to do so. I like to call him Mini Durant for a reason. I mean, he's freaking 6'10", can shoot over anyone, is pretty athletic, and I think he could do well as a second option, but is it really going to go well? I'm not sure. And then besides that, Will Barton. Will Barton needs to step up from what he has been doing this year, because the Nuggets kept him around because they thought that he had, good production last year before his injury. Averaging 15 points a game, basically being their third best scorer for the majority of the season before he got injured and couldn't play in the bubble. He was looked at as like one of the surprises on that team, and the Nuggets were hoping that he would replicate that this year. Obviously, his role has been reduced, but he hasn't been, as involved in the offense, and he's even dropped off a little bit in field goal percentage from 45 to 42.9. But he needs to produce more. He's also going to need to produce more because, like I mentioned earlier, Aaron Gordon's going to do a lot of the defensive work, and they're going to have to make up some points somehow. And Will Barton is one of those guys who has the ability to create his own shot off the dribble. But he needs to do it on a more regular basis now, and he needs to become just more reliable for this team going forward. Along with that, with the Jamal Murray news, I mean, Facundo Campazzo is going to probably start for the remainder of the season. And the Nuggets also made a move to sign Austin Rivers for the remainder of the year just so they have some more guard depth. But at the end of the day, the Nuggets, their title chances may be, put down. But it sucks for someone like Jamal Murray, who's finally getting into his groove. Such a young player, got the big contract. And I know he just wants to be on that court, wants to help out his team. But, knowing what he has done throughout his career, from what I've seen in interviews and stuff, it seems like he's just going to work harder and harder to get back on the court. And I know he's going to try his best to be there for his team as quick as possible, but of course in a safely manner. So from here, from TV and basketball, prayers up to Jamal Murray, and just hope that he gets a speedy recovery. One of the most gifted players in this league. I want to see him back on the court and doing his thing. Yeah, so some two sad news to start off today's episode, but we are now going to be getting into these top 5 game winners of this year. And the reason I want to talk about this is Luca Doncic just 2 days ago hit a crazy game winner over the Grizzlies, and I just thought of his game winners personally, and I was going to do the same thing where I did with Lillard early on in the season, just pick his best game winners, but it just made me think of just so many game winners this year, and I was just like, where would he rank? Like, where would this game winner rank among the others? I think this is gonna be. This is a really fun list to make. There were so many choices to go with here. Like, it's still hard to pick a top 5 up to this point, but I'm gonna go through it. Hopefully, let me know what you guys think down below, if you agree or disagree with these picks. But I'm gonna try and paint the scenario as best I can, and I'm going to give you my rankings for these top 5. Right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to choose from here, because I think that 9 game winners from this year have the case to be a part of this top 5. But it was really tough, but here are the 4 that I left out. One of the honorable mentions I have is the Gary Trent Jr. game winner versus the Washington Wizards. I was going to have it in there, but it was an ugly game all around. Gary Trent Jr., this was one of his first games as a Raptor. Didn't call a timeout. Went down the court. He didn't foul Raul Neto, for the people who still think that's a charge. It isn't. He pulls up from 3. It's a game winner and becomes a freaking Raptors legend right away. Really good game for him. And he's been really good for the Raptors, so that's some promising news for that team. But that game winner was crazy, especially because the Wizards actually had a pretty big lead and the Raptors came back. But yeah, the Gary Trent game winner, I don't have it in there. Another play that I don't have in there is the Colin Sexton game winner versus the Brooklyn Nets. I wanted to put it in there. I actually wanted to put it in there, especially because he was absolutely on fire in that fourth quarter and overtime, if you guys remember. Colin Sexton was fantastic that game and then capped it off with a game winner with 1.4 seconds remaining. He was so good in that game, and it sucks that I wasn't able to add him onto this list. Another one that I'm not going to add to this list is the Bradley Beal 4-point play versus the Warriors. And I know it sounds crazy. I know it does. Bradley Beal hits a game winner with a couple seconds left after Wiggins fouled him on a 3-point shot after grabbing a rebound. And the Wizards go on to win the game, keep their playoff hopes alive. But I don't know. I just don't think the craziness was there, but the craziness wasn't fully there, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you know what I mean, but you know what I mean. And then finally, the other one that I am not going to include here is the... I feel bad now. I feel bad. Honestly, this was the toughest one. Which one was going to leave out without the 6 from the 6? I am going to remove the Cole Anthony game winner versus the Wolves. That was a crazy game winner. And, coming off a rebound, a couple seconds left, Cole Anthony literally just pulls up, just hoping for a prayer at the 3-point line, and he hits it. His teammates go crazy. Then at the end, he just runs to the locker room, so he doesn't even give a chance for the refs to review it. But it was clear that he got it off, and that was a crazy game winner. The only reason I have that in there is because it's against the Wolves, and I just think that although it's impressive, it is very, very impressive. I just don't think it's in the top 5 in my opinion, because I have 5 game winners here, and I have them ranked from 5 to 1 here, that I think is arguably that is better than the Cole Anthony one. Those are the 4 honorable mentions only. So coming to the top 5, here we go. Coming at number 5, we have Damian Lillard versus the Chicago Bulls. I have this at number 5. Damian Lillard, obviously Dame time is a real thing. And this was this was number 2 or number 3. I think this is somewhere in the top 5, Damian Lillard game winners of his career that I talked about early in the season. But this game winner was ridiculous. Came off a jump ball with a couple seconds left. The Blazers got it, kick it to Lillard, and he hits a fading shot to his right to win the game over the Bulls. No CJ in that one, no Yusuf Nurkic, and that was the start of just like Lillard continuing to build his MVP case because he was fantastic even when McCollum and Nurkic were out. And that was just one of those games, man. Just classic Lillard time. So that's coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have the Harrison Barnes game winner over the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I know it's the Kings versus the Cavs. How could this be in the top 5? Well, this one was so crazy. 1.4 seconds left, no timeouts for the Sacramento Kings. I don't know who was inbounding it, but he was basically, if you guys remember the LeBron James game winner versus the Wizards a couple years back, the one where the entire crowd, the Wizards crowd, was shook. It was basically the one where Kevin Love kind of did a full court pass to LeBron, and then he does a turnaround jumper off the glass to send it to overtime. Well, Harrison Barnes basically did that, but he catches the pass, turns around to his right, just like LeBron, shoots it over, I believe it was Colin Sexton, and he hits the game winner. Like, honestly, I remember watching that and I'm like, yo, that was insane. And then afterwards, the slap on the butt to Colin Sexton is like, nice try, buddy. Like, honestly, like, that was a crazy game winner and one of my favorites of this year. And I think very underrated because no one's going to talk about a Kings-Cavs game winner. But, yeah, coming at number 4, we have that one, Harrison Barnes over the Cavs. Coming in at number 3, we have Luca Doncic versus the Boston Celtics. And I'm kind of cheating here because this is technically a two-parter. But Luca Doncic, man, that last 16 seconds was just absolutely magical from him. They were down by 1. Luca Doncic has Daniel Tice on him, hits a step back 3, hits it, and they have a 2-point game. The Celtics come on the other hand, Jaylen Brown hits a mid-range jumper to tie the game. Mavs call a timeout. Not even call a timeout. I think he just inbounded, get it to Luca. One side of the court, the right side of the court, all the way to the left side. Step back 3, hits it. Very similar to his shot against the Clippers last year, and then scores it with 0.1 seconds remaining. That one was crazy. I mean, like I said, the shot beforehand was absolutely crazy over Tice, and then he hits this one. Like, come on now. Like, those two plays, I had to put him in because that whole sequence was just ridiculous. And that's why I have that number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2, we have Russell Westbrook versus the Brooklyn Nets. And if you guys remember this play was absolutely crazy. I believe it was either, I think it was actually Bradley Beal who hit a 3 to cut the game to 2 with 5 seconds remaining. And the Wizards were pressuring the inbound. Joe Harris messes up. He throws the ball away. Garrison Matthews catches it from the corner 3, passes it to Westbrook. He hits a 3, and it's like a 6-point swing in like 8 seconds, which was absolutely ridiculous. Like, that was such a crazy play. Like, this was basically the same thing that Zach LaVine did last year, where Satoransky hit a shot with like 5 seconds left. Then they got the steal. Zach LaVine goes to the 3-point line and just wins the game. This is the equivalent this year, and Russell Westbrook was absolutely fantastic that game. Obviously, he always shows out when KD comes to town. And that was just one of the craziest sequences of the year and deserves to be on this list for top game winners. And for me, that's number 2. And at number 1, the reason why we started this this list, we have Luca versus the Grizzlies. I just honestly can't believe it with this guy. Like, the whole situation was the Grizzlies were up by 2, they get fouled, and Grayson Allen, who at the time was a 93% free throw shooter, had a chance to kind of put this game away, make it a 4-point game. Misses the first one. Okay. People miss once in a while, but he's going to hit a second one just because he's that good of a free throw shooter. Misses the second one. The Mavs get a timeout, and 1.7 seconds left, and you're like, oh, they're probably going to throw some garbage up, and that's going to be the end of this game. No, Luka Doncic catches it, gets double-teamed, literally breaks through 2 defenders, falling forward, floater 3-pointer, and his momentum literally takes him underneath the rim, and he hits it. He just hits it, and everyone's going crazy. I'm just like, how on earth is he doing this? And with the way he's hitting shots in pregame, the shots he's hitting in game, I mean, is it luck? Is it skill? It has to be a mixture of both. But that was probably that for me was the craziest game winner this year. Just the degree of difficulty, just the way that the Grizzlies choked that away was absolutely crazy. And Doncic, with his Luca magic, does it again. And what's weird is that he has 2 plays in the top 3, but that's how special this guy is. This guy has been absolutely fantastic this year. Continue to do his thing. Those are my top 5 game winners. The honorable mentions are not in order, but I had to shout those ones out. But let me know, what was your favorite game winner from this year? Let me know down below. We're going to head on to the last topics of the show, which is the other news and notes. So some other news that happened in the NBA this week. Michael Jordan has been announced that he was going to be the one to honor Kobe Bryant into the Hall of Fame this year. Obviously, Kobe was inducted last year, but they couldn't do the ceremony because COVID. But they're going to do it this year, and a former either Hall of Fame member or thinks someone in the NBA family has to induct him in, and it was MJ, which makes absolute sense. Kobe modeled his game after MJ so much. They kind of look like carbon copies of each other if you watch those classic videos of them. It's crazy. I think it's going to be a good moment. Hopefully they get Vanessa Bryant to speak out on that as well. It's going to be super sad when it actually happens, but it's glad to see that the GOAT is going to induct in one of the greatest players of all time in Kobe Bryant. Next topic to discuss, we have Jason Tatum talking about his experience with COVID. And he said he's still feeling the symptoms after 3 months of having it. He's getting closer to 100%, but he said he's been using an inhaler. I just want to take this time to just remind people, it's still out there. Please be careful. And although it may not, if you had it and it's not affecting you that much, just remember it can affect other people differently. Tatum, as an example here, he's a healthy athlete and he has to use an inhaler before every game. I just want to use this as a reminder to please continue to do your part. Please wear your masks and just be considerate of others. Another thing that happened this week was Luca Doncic. Yes, I talked about him a lot in the game winner section, but he shared his thoughts on the NBA play-in tournament, and he said that he wasn't a fan. Playing 72 games already in the season, why do we have to do this to put ourselves into playoffs? And I kind of agree with him at some points, but I also disagree with other points. I just think that the NBA is in this kind of weird situation where you don't want teams to tank, so you kind of expand the playoffs. I don't want to say expand the playoffs, but they give them opportunities to even if you're the 10th seed to even get into the playoffs, and I think that's a good idea. But of course, these guys at the top, the 7th and 8th seeds are like, how come we have to play this? I mean, this was always going to happen, but NBAs are trying to find ways to limit tanking, whether it was lowering the odds of the top 3 picks, whether it was adding this play-in tournament. I mean, they're trying some things. They're doing this. So hopefully teams give this a chance. And like I mentioned earlier, the 7th and 8th seeds were always going to complain. This was bound to happen. If they were 6 and above, they weren't going to be complaining. If they're 11th and below, they weren't going to be complaining. So, I mean, it just happens. This was always going to happen. And the NBA, hopefully this goes well, but I do expect more tinkerings going forward. Some other news that happened this week, which actually happened yesterday, Zach LaVine is going to miss a number of games due to health and safety protocols. And this couldn't come at a worse time for the Chicago Bulls, who have been struggling ever since they traded for Vucevic. It's basically been the Zach LaVine-Vucevic show, and there hasn't been much help besides that. But I mean, the Zach LaVine's going to miss, 4 to 5 games? And with the Raptors right down their throats, the Wizards right down their throats, it's going to be tough for them to maintain this, especially with under 20 games remaining. It's going to be interesting to see how the Bulls do. Then this is going to force the other players to have to produce something, so there's that. But yeah, this is probably worst timing possible for the Bulls, who just lost to the Magic a couple of days ago, who traded Vucevic to them. So yeah, they're probably at rock bottom right now, the Chicago Bulls this season. Let's see if they're still gonna be able to stay in that top 10. But with the very few games remaining, it's looking less and less likely. And then finally, I had to mention this on the podcast, even though I mentioned this in a recap. Steph Curry, number one all time in scoring for the Golden State Warriors, surpassing Wilt Chamberlain. I believe this was either Monday night or Tuesday night. He needed 19 points to break the record, and Steph was like, "Okay, I'll do it in the first quarter," and he scored 21. So Steph doing his thing, sitting at the top of the leader of the scoring list for the Warriors all time, as he should. I'm definitely gonna have a whole segment dedicated to Curry, probably in the offseason, and then probably again next year when he ends up breaking Ray Allen's 3-point shooting record, which he's 200 threes away from. So this is probably gonna happen before the All-Star break. So yeah, Steph Curry doing his thing, playing at an MVP level. Sadly, his team isn't really helping him out there, but let's see if they can make some noise in the playing tournament. Let's see if they can actually make the playoffs. But it's good to see him, playing still at a very high level at 33 years of age. Steph Curry is just, one of the best players still in basketball. So yeah, those are the news and notes. Let me know down below what you guys think of those, or just any other topic that was discussed here on today's episode. But I think this is where we're going to end things. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Got to be back on Monday with another podcast for you guys, recapping the weekend along with my power rankings. And then soon after that, hopefully we get some more guests going into the month of May with the NBA playoffs coming around, with award season coming around. I'm going to definitely have to do some of these episodes going forward with some other people, so I will definitely try and get those out for you. And again, just thank you guys for all the support you've been giving to the podcast, and I will definitely put on some more effort once school's over, once I'm done with my exams. And I'm just excited for just more NBA basketball going forward. But yeah, like I said, this is where we're going to end things. Thank you guys for watching or listening, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. TV signing out.